welcome to Adventures with Scars. I'm your host, Lauren Huffmaster. I've been living with cancer for 7 years, and because of my cancer journey, I founded Adventure Therapy Foundation. Adventures with Scars is our discussion on the invisible side effects of cancer. These are the emotional side effects of cancer, and it's what's really important to us at Adventure Therapy Foundation to discuss, to bring into the world, to expand so that we can all grow healthily together. Last season, I presented my philosophy on the aspects of cancer experience that are difficult to put into words. I defined what is invisible and presented a timeline of how we heal from the trauma of cancer. In our second season, I'll be talking with others. I want to have discussions with survivors and co-survivors and ask them if these invisible side effects of cancer were real in their lives and their stories. And today, I'm so excited to talk with Shirley Padgett. Shirley and her husband have been servants their whole life. She's a retired teacher. Her husband was a firefighter, and they spent their life helping others. But just recently, Shirley lost her husband to cancer. And today she's going to join us and talk about this experience. Hi, Shirley.
Hi, Lauren.
Thank you so much for spending the time and trusting me to come here and talk about your story.
Thank you for having me and honoring Stephen and his story too.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, we just want to know, can you tell us a little bit about your husband and his cancer story?
Sure. Stephen was just 56 when he was diagnosed. He was diagnosed in August of 2021. It was actually August 24th of 2021 when we were told through a cystoscope that he had bladder cancer. And the doctor was sure that it was bladder cancer. And I said, well, should we wait for a biopsy? And she said, Shirley, I don't need to wait for the biopsy. We will wait for the biopsy to determine what type of cancer he has, but I'm telling you now, he has bladder cancer. And so Stephen looked at me and he's like, well, we knew this was coming, honey. What did we expect? Research shows if you have a mass in your bladder, chances are it's bladder cancer. And so I was like, okay, a little bit blindsided completely for me. I was blindsided. And he looked at the doctor and he said, I don't want you to hold my hand. I don't need you to sugarcoat anything. I want to know everything that I need to know to fight and how we're going to get past this and what we're going to do. And he said, that's why I have my wife. She'll hold my hand. She'll be there. And she's the soft side. I want the facts and the knowledge and the power to move forward and, go and fight this to the best of our ability and see what we can do. And then on September 14th of 2021, we got the news that it was small cell bladder cancer, which is an extremely rare bladder cancer that is only brought on by smoking. And Stephen's not a smoker, but as you know, he was a firefighter in a large city for almost 30 years. And so they looked at us, a team of doctors looked at us and they said, well, it's pretty common for firefighters to get, cancer like this. It's pretty common and we're sorry, but everything we thought we could do for you has now since shifted. So Stephen, who was on board with having the bladder removal, the prostate removal, all of those surgeries and the shift and blasting out that cancer suddenly shifted. And we were told it's terminal and it's incurable and there's nothing that we can do to save your life. What we are now doing, the shift is now, how can we give you quality of life and extend it as far as we possibly can? And we went through, and of course you get your second opinions and your third opinions, and every hospital, corporation, every every entity out there with his cancer was all on the same page. It's a rare cancer we know very little about, and we'll treat it like we do small cell lung cancer, and hope that we can give you the gift of time, the gift of time with your family. And so that's what we did, and that's what we had. And Stephen fought every moment with grace and dignity and hope. He never gave up hope that he would be that miracle, that they would find a cure, or at least give him the gift of more time. He never complained. He just, he did the trial. He was eligible for one trial, and he did the one trial of Zepzelca, and 28 rounds of chemotherapy later, 10 rounds of whole brain radiation, because the cancer had spread to his brain, 10 rounds of whole brain radiation, and 5 rounds of radiation on his adrenal gland, on his stomach, hoping to shrink. And the doctors, every step of the way, were saying, they let us know every step of the way that this won't cure you. This will not cure you. We're hoping to give you quality of life. And we don't want you to, how did they put it? We don't want you to have false hope that we are going to announce that all of a sudden you get to, that you're cancer free. You will never be cancer free, but we want to give you the gift of time and the gift of quality with your kids and your wife and your extended family and friends. So, and then on February 19th of this year, 2023, he lost his battle with cancer. It's kind of a shortened version.
Well, we're so sorry for your loss. And I know that you two were beautiful together. You were so happy and did so many beautiful things for others. And words just can't express our sorrow as we watch this process happen. But what I really want to know right now is, this is the medical timeline you just shared with us. What was happening in your relationship through all this?
In the beginning, it was rediscovering. Stephen and I have been together. He was only 56 at the time, and going through that, we've been together for over 30 plus years together. We've been married over 33, and together over 35. And so we were really, really young when we got together and started our family. And we looked at one another. I was still working. I was teaching, and it was during COVID. So it was, actually, I think COVID was near the end. I was teaching, kids were in the classroom, and we looked at one another. He was retired. He'd been retired for a few years now. And we were like, you know what? We got this. We got this together. Together we can climb any mountain that there is. There's nothing they can't throw at us. There's nothing that they can't do to us that we can't fight or handle, as long as we're together. Together we will do this every step of the way. So then in August, rather suddenly, he went to his first chemo treatment with my daughter, and I was at work, and I was messaging and calling, and I couldn't separate that angst of not being there. It was horrible. It was positively horrible for me emotionally that I wasn't there. Our daughter is strong and independent, and she's a grown woman, and she's a fierce fighter for her dad also. And she had no problem being there. It was my control that I couldn't let go of not being there. And Stephen came home, and he said, I need you. I need you. I need you here with me. And I want you here with me. And how do you feel about giving up and stepping away from work? And further discussing, the hardship of that, it's an emotional escape, right? Work is an emotional escape. I get to pretend, I get to immerse myself in my students and what we're doing in the classroom and what they're doing with their lives. And I struggled with that. And he knew emotionally that I was going to struggle with that. But I said, absolutely. I knew being in the classroom with Melissa, with Stephen, taking that first step together without me present there physically, that I knew that I had to be there. And so Stephen and I made the choice that I would take a leave of absence from work and step away from teaching and fight the fight together and spend the time together and ensure that he would be safe and healthy, because while we were teaching in person, and it was still the risk of me bringing home something, because a classroom of littles is still a germ fest, and that fear of me bringing COVID home to him was still relevant. It still mattered because it was still such a part of our lives, sneaking into the doctors with him, or, demanding, no, I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me. I'm going in. So I don't care what I have to do to get in the door, but I'm going in with him. He's not doing it alone. And so that I just knew I had to be there. And so stepping away and doing it together. So.
And in this process, your whole identity is shifting. Your teaching, your job, your passion, your career is you're stepping away from it. Your husband is shifting, and your whole family is sort of swirling around his treatments. And so, what I hear you saying right now is that your identity really, really shifted, and you had to redefine, sort of concentrate on what was most important. There's so many important things, but at this moment you had to choose the one thing, only one thing that was really important to you.
I did. It was looking back on it now, it was such a huge identity shift for me. I'm still learning what is now my identity and where am I going in my path and my journey as a co-survivor of cancer, having lost him and lost that identity, really, because for over a year and a half, my identity was his identity and his cancer and his battle and what we're going to do to get through it as not just a couple, but as a family. We look at ourselves as, the four musketeers, because we have two children, and how we're going to get through it together and grow and learn and shift, what that emotional shift is looking like and how it evolved and changed. So
I have sort of a weird question. You were saying that your husband, he was always hopeful that he'd be the miracle, he'd be the one that broke through. And now he's passed, and you're having to deal with that broken hope. So my question is, do you regret choosing hope in this difficult situation?
100% no, absolutely not. I think without hope, what do you have? Where are you left? If you don't have hope, what else do you have to grasp onto? Stephen never looked at his cancer with hate, and he would get frustrated for sure. Who wouldn't, and the angst of it. And but he never looked at cancer as a negative. He said, there are so many worse things that could have happened to me. I could get hit by a truck and be gone. I could have a heart attack and be gone. So I look, and I'll speak as Stephen, I look at my cancer babe as a gift. And he said, how can I not? I know that I have this expiration date, and I know that I'm not going to get cured. And I know that these things are going to happen. And I can hope that I'm going to get cured, and I can hope for that miracle. But in the meantime, I'm going to take each day that I have as a gift. And while I may not have the energy to walk around the block, and I may not have the energy to, run a marathon or run up a flight of stairs or just eat a whole meal, I may not have the energy to do those things, but I have the gift of time and the gift to have the hard conversations with our kids and the friends that we get to call family, and family that not everybody gets. And he said, so how can I look at this with such hate? I can't. I have to look at it as a gift of time, and a gift that I get to give to others who I am. And I get to continue to share who he was, who he was as a human with us, with the rest of us. So
What was your greatest gift of cancer? What was the thing that meant the most to you?
the growth of our relationship, knowing that we did everything that we could together, and laying my head down on his shoulder at night, knowing that I can just breathe him in, and we can hold hands and have that time, knowing that our relationship was still building, and it was still growing, and it was still evolving. Even after 33 years, you find that 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 spark is always there. The love is always there. And I would say the gift of cancer for me was also, like Stephen, the time that we had together. It's never, you think you're prepared to say goodbye, and you think you're prepared for that next chapter or that next step. And then suddenly you're in it, and you realize you're not prepared, and so I would do it all over again. I would do every step, every breath, every treatment, every appointment, every phone call, every Zoom meeting. I would do that walk with him, that cancer walk with him, all over again. And I know that he would too, just to be back, just to have him back. So
I love what you said, that your relationship was still growing, and it's such a paradox to think that as your body is growing slower and more sick, your relationship can grow stronger and more intense and more loving and more beautiful. And so that's just one of those beautiful things I've heard today. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask you, I used the word co-survivor, and you used that word today too. Co-survivor is a term I've created because I don't feel like there's language around the impact of cancer on those that we love. So I've been living with metastatic disease. That means my husband's been processing this. My children have been raised with no other perspective except that mom has cancer their whole lives. And so we created this word co-survivor because they cohabitate, they live life with me.
right.
And so I just wanted to know from your opinion, your husband isn't a survivor. He passed away to the disease, but you continue to live, and cancer did impact your life. So
Mhm.
how do you feel about this term? Is this a good term for you who's living, even though your husband is passed on?
I would say so. I would agree with that because, like you said, we're right there. And while it's not me that has the cancer, I'm still moving forward. I'm still trying to figure out and survive with cancer, with the impact of cancer. And it impacted not just my life, but my children's life as well. And so our children are grown. And so they didn't grow up like yours with that's all that they knew about their mom, right? That's all they know about you and having cancer surround them. Our children didn't have that. So our children had dad without cancer and the memory of dad without cancer and the memory of dad with cancer. And now the memory that's surviving with without him with cancer. And so I think it may be hard for some, but I would say it's truly how how I deal with it, because I am a survivor of someone with cancer. So I would agree with that term and I relate to that term.
Okay, good. I never asked someone, that's sort of the point of this podcast, is to try things on, try on new ideas, try on new terminology, and see if we think that feels good or if it doesn't feel good. And so I just didn't know. So thank you for letting me have a little bit of insight into how it feels to you. And so again, trying on these new concepts of emotional side effects of cancer, these invisible things that really have such a significant impact on our life. Do you feel like you've been impacted by the emotional side effects of cancer, these things, the fear, the isolation, the broken identity? Is that something you experience?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it is a fear. It is, I am, as a survivor of someone that I lost with cancer, my best friend. I mean, he was my person. I lost my person, and I'm left in this space, and I'm left with that alone. I live alone now. And it's such a huge shift. And even, I walk into a room, and there's where he was sleeping, and there's the blanket that he used. And while he was sleeping 18 of 24 hours a day at times, um, I could still breathe him in. And there's comfort and safety in that he was there. And then discovering, walking into a home that, because we moved. And so walking into this home that we just recently moved to, and that first time walking in alone and realizing that every step I take in my future, every existence, every breath, no longer I get to don't I no longer get to breathe him in. It's me. And how will I survive this? Right? How will I do this walk alone? And how will I continue to move forward? How am I going to figure it out? And that grieving process. And I would say it coincides with the isolation and the fear, the anxiety. All of it is what I was living, what I am living right now. It's been almost 3 months since we've lost Stephen. And it's every day brings a little bit more hope. Every day, in the beginning, it was a moment by moment, breath by breath. Am I going to survive this? And our children, are they going to survive it? And what does it look like? What does this new chapter look like for all three of us now? And so I relate to your mountain of fire. And it may sound odd, but it was snowing in November where we live. And Stephen he had the little snow shovel, and he's like, well, I'm going to try to shovel the backyard. And I said, okay, I'm going to plant tulips, and I'm going to plant the tulip bulbs in this new flower bed we have. And I'm going to plant tulips and peonies, some of my favorite flowers. And he's like, okay, babe. Well, he was shoveling for a few minutes, and he's like, yeah, no, this isn't, I'm done. I'm tired. And so he's just leaning on the shovel against the patio cover, and he's watching me, and we're just chatting, and I'm digging my holes and planting my flower bulbs. And I see those. I came home this last time, and I walked into our backyard, And, I was crying and sad and feeling empty. And then I see these beautiful tulips, these purple and pink and white tulips that are blooming, and such a gift, right? In the memory of what we had and what we did together and what we shared. And so I look at those tulips, and now they bring such joy in knowing that we did it together, in the conversations that we had while we were doing those flowers together. And then knowing that I look at those flowers as a gift from him, a sign from him that life goes on and you're not going to stop living your life, because life goes on and our kids matter and you matter. And I want you to, I just look at those as a gift from him, that we still move on. And I relate to that mountain of fire in one of your previous podcasts that I was listening to, that that poppy, in amongst all of the ashes and all of the blackened mountainside. And you can relate to it with your black heart, right? My blackened heart, my heart is breaking inside, and I lost my soulmate. And then there's this little bud, this little purple flower that's coming up from the earth. And so that's how yes, I would say, to answer your question, I can relate to that. And I believe that, the survivors do go through those same emotions, if you let yourself. If you let yourself, allow yourself, I don't want to say let, but if you allow yourself to feel all of those feels, and don't shut it out, but embrace it, and, give yourself the grace to fall apart, and give yourself the grace to laugh and be mad and be sad and be happy. Give yourself the grace for all of those feels, all of those moments, to keep moving forward, not only for yourself, but for your family and for your friends and for your future, because your future hasn't stopped, and my future with our children hasn't stopped. And while Stephen may not be here with us, he's always here with us, right? He's not here in the physical world with us, but that breath that I can take, I can close my eyes and I can still feel him. I can still smell him. And so he will forever be with us. But yeah.
You said so many good things that I want to acknowledge. First of all, the idea that co-survivors, there's cancer's impact is so much bigger than just the patients. There's co-survivors. I mean, in just your family, you have you and your two children who are deeply impacted by cancer, and you're walking through all of these similar emotions, all of these emotional side effects, and yet so much recognition is put on the patient, when there's a infinitely more people walking around impacted by cancer than we can see, because this impact is invisible. And so, first of all, just that cancer's impact is bigger than just the patients. If we're going to talk about millions of cancer patients, then we need to talk about tens of millions of people impacted by cancer. So that's the first.
Absolutely.
The second thought is just this idea of, you're talking about the mountains on fire, and that's the concept of all this time you spent in treatment, when you were sort of just you're running from treatment to treatment, from doctor to doctor, trying to walk out their plans and their strategies. And that season was the last year or so. And you were able to find beauty in that. You were able to find these perfect moments that you get to hold on to during that season. But a lot of your emotions during that time was just walking out these plans. And that is the season of this fire idea, because the things that we're walking through are stripping us down. You said your heart's breaking, you're crumbling, like that, the ash we see and the imagery of a burnt tree, that things are crumbling. But all of that is fertile. It's going to make your life so much more rich, because all of the ash really is just going into the ground, and it's creating fertile ground for new things to grow. But then we enter this void season, right? Where we don't know what we want to grow. Like, I feel like that's where you are now. Like, you have your life, you have the knowledge of what it feels like to be loved and to love. You have the knowledge of what it feels like to grieve and to walk with someone and be united in sickness and in health, and all those beautiful concepts. You know what that feels like. We don't know yet maybe what to do with them. Your next path, your next season is very unclear, because we're still grieving. We're grieving. We're honoring the past. You're still focused on, the past, what you've done well, the beauty, and you're sitting in this moment sort of between worlds. You're still living in this world, Stephen, and you're wondering what the next world looks like and what it is that you will become, and that is that void season. But what I love is that even in this void, you're not crushed by it. I mean, your heart is crumbling. Your many of your ideals are crumbling because they've been burned by this fire of cancer. But there's hope. There's tulips growing in the front yard, and there's beautiful moments and memories and relationships and love that's beautiful. It's fragile, but it's beautiful, and it can't be destroyed. And I think that's what it's all about, that no matter what trauma, no matter what fires come into your life, there are beautiful things that cannot be destroyed. And those are the things that we can hold as seeds for the future, because now we live in this, we're no longer innocent thinking that we're going to live beautiful, perfect forever and ever. We know that life is terrible and hard, but it's beautiful too. The seeds that you have right now in your hand, your tulips, your love, your memories, these are things you now know without a shadow of a doubt will never be taken from you. They cannot be taken from you. It doesn't matter what comes your way. These are eternal in your life, in your world, in your legacy. And I think that is what the void is all about, finding those things that no fire could ever take from you, no trauma could ever steal, and learning to create a new life out of that somehow and in some way. This is a process, right? This process of healing can take years, but you are moving forward. I hear you're not stuck. You're not in this hole that you can't find your way out. You have tools, and when you're ready, you're going to use those tools to make something even more beautiful than you can imagine right now. But the important thing in the void, I think, this season of hurting and emptiness and just uncertainty, is parts of you can never be shaken. Parts of you can never be taken. No matter what comes, they will always be in your hand, and they will link you to what was, and they will carry you to what will be, because they are there. They're the part of you that cannot corrode, cannot get sick. They're the part of you that can't go away. And that is what we find in the void. You've moved, you've so many other changes that maybe you thought were secure have come and gone, but these are the things that no matter where you go, what you do, will not be shaken. And that is the true essence of us, right? The true essence of our legacy and our story and who we are. And I just think that the void is the hardest season, because we're not used to only having these precious things. We're used to having lots of other things, like people to talk to and joy and all these other things that fill up the space around us. But when it comes down to it, these precious few things that can't be taken are enough. They're enough for life. They're enough to find purpose in every moment. And I just love you have poppies. I love you have memories of love, and you've lived so well. You've loved so well that you have no regrets in that. And that's that is a place that I really strive for, that in every situation, I want to live in a way that I have no regrets, so that I know that every day I did the best that I could do on that day for the person in front of me and the people beside me. Because even if their situation gets hard and harder and harder, I know I showed up and I was there. And those are beautiful certainties in the world of chaos and trauma and uncertainty.
Right. I would agree. I would agree.
So yeah, thank you for sharing your story and talking about this void season. I just want to acknowledge it is a hard season, because it's up to you at this moment. There's so many ways forward, and yet there's so many reasons to stay, and it's that tension between that. But Shirley, I know the person that you are, and I know that you are going to create more and more beauty everywhere you go, every day that you live. And I just am thankful for the person that you are. I just want to let you know that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I appreciate all that you do, Miss Lauren. You are making a huge impact. And I know people have said it before and people will say it again, but the legacy that you're giving and the gift that you're giving to people with cancer and families with cancer and families impacted by cancer and the families that have lost someone to cancer, the gift that you're giving through adventure therapy and rise.org and your podcasts is truly heartwarming and impactful. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So you use the word legacy. Let's maybe wrap up our conversation. Thinking of Stephen's legacy, what statement would you say? What do you think his most, if for those of us who never met him or would never meet him, what would you think that we should know? What's like a life statement that we could carry with us, a piece of wisdom that comes from Stephen's life?
Live each day to the fullest. Love and forgive and embrace, and don't look at your own hardships as a negative. Look at how you can move past them. You may not be able to move a mountain, but you can move around the mountain. And don't give up on yourself or those around you, that you can do anything that you want. You have to try. You've got to be willing to try and take a step. And it's okay, because he would say failing isn't in not having success. Failing would be in not trying. And Stephen always looked at things as half full. The glass is half full and not half empty. His life was always half full and never half empty. And his cancer was never about an angry thing. It was about a positive, about what he could give to others with cancer, with a terminal diagnosis. That's what I would say the gifts that he has left behind. It's humbling how he handled his cancer diagnosis and treatments. And it's a gift for those that are left behind to continue in his legacy with, pride and hope and positivity. Find the positive, find one positive thing and hold on to that if that's what you need to keep moving forward and to not give up and don't lose hope. That would be Stephen.
Well, let's not lose hope, no matter what situation we're in, no matter what we're facing. All of us, there's a choice in every day to hope or to not hope. And hope, even Shirley was saying, even now, after she's gone through the whole process of treatment and diagnosis and everything they've walked through, now living in a time with her husband gone, she says she does not regret one day that she hoped along the way. The hope is our strength sometimes, and it doesn't have to be rational. It doesn't have to make sense. We can choose to hope. And so often it comes down to our our perspective, our choices, the what we choose to think. And I'm so thankful for your husband's legacy and his story. Thank you for being here. Just want to say, if you were encouraged by Shirley's story in our conversation today, and you'd like more information, feel free to check out adventuretherapyfoundation.org, where we have educational materials. We have more discussions like this, and we want to support you as well as you walk through cancer. Whether you're a survivor or a co-survivor, we want to stand here with you and help you as you heal from the emotional impact of cancer. Thank you for listening to Adventures with Scars.
Thanks for sharing Stephen's story. Thanks for the time. It's a gift for our family as well. Thank you, Lauren.
No problem.